Alright, so back in the week that Interstellar and Big Hero 6 came out, I promised that I would do movie reviews of 2014 movies from then all the way to the end of the year. Unfortunately, I got really backed up and decided not to, unfortunately, make movie reviews of those movies. And so hopefully I'm going to rectify it a little by making a best of and worst of 2014 and talk a little bit about those movies. And I definitely still have a lot of movies to see. In fact, I just recently rented The Guest from Redbox, and so I'm only about 30 minutes into that movie as we speak. So I still have a lot of movies like Whiplash to see and quite a few other ones that are a little underrated or movies that are a little under the radar that our movie theaters would not get. So while I will not be ready to make a best of video probably until closer to summer of 2015, I do feel that I am ready to make a worst of 2014. And while there is still movies I have to see, I highly doubt they're going to be as bad as the movies that I consider the worst of 2014. If I do happen to come upon a movie that I absolutely did not like, then I might make a separate review just for that. For me, I like slightly bigger lists. I don't like to just do a top 10 or even a top 20. So I am going to, so this video is obviously going to probably be split into a few parts. But I'm going to tell you all the movies that I would give 1.5 stars or lower to. And that ended up being 26 movies of 2014. Before I get started though, there are movies that I have not seen that I will never see. And they probably would have made the worst list if I had seen them. But since I have not seen them, they are not on my list, and I'll just mention them to you right now. They are Left Behind. Yeah, that looked awful. What else was there that I'm not ever going to see? Oh yeah, The Other Women. Or is it Woman? The Other Woman? I think it's The Other Woman. And then there was 2 movies that I tried to watch, but I did not finish. I could not make it through the entire film of these 2 movies, and because I could not see the whole film, I cannot in good conscience put it on a list, even though it was so bad that I couldn't even finish the movie. And those movies are That Awkward Moment, didn't even make it halfway through, and then the other one was Haunt, which I did make it halfway through. It had a pretty decent premise and a movie that I probably would consider 2 to 3 stars. Unfortunately, as it got to the middle, it just dragged to the point where I was not even interested in the movie at all. It just, what the hell happened, you know? So those 4 movies are movies that I will never see, that probably would make my list if I had seen them, but I haven't. So of course I'll just start by saying that this is completely just my opinion. It's completely subjective, and if you liked some of the movies on this list, then that's great for you. Unfortunately, I could not like these films, and so that's why it's in my worst list. Some of these films you might feel should be lower or higher and whatnot. That's okay with me. That's okay, because everyone has their own opinion. So yeah, I bet a few of you are probably thinking that this should be even lower on the list. And the fact that this is 26 is pretty crazy. But if you think about it, I have seen currently 135 movies. For it to be number 26 is still pretty bad. And like I said, this just so happens to be the highest movie that I would give a 1.5 stars to. So just keep that in mind. 1.5 for me is still a dislike. So yeah, Annie is not as bad as most people think. For me, there's some moments where I thought were okay and things I liked about it, which is why I would give it a 1.5 star rather than 1.5 or 0 stars. Yeah, I have some 0 stars on this list. That doesn't happen for me too often. I'm pretty optimistic with movies. But yeah, Annie, all they did was they tried to modernize Annie, which is fine, honestly. Some of their ideas were good. Unfortunately, it just wasn't done to the quality it needed to be. It was way too long a movie. There was way too much unnecessary filler, like montages and just goofy stuff where it has nothing to do with the characters developing. It has nothing to do with the relationship between our main characters, and it's just there to fill. That's what filler is, and unfortunately there's way too much of it, which ultimately turned it into like a 2-hour-long movie. Unnecessary completely. People that do not like change, people that do not like their classic Annie songs to be changed, will obviously hate this movie. If you're accepting of change, then fine. You might actually enjoy this movie. And I can see little kids and people actually liking this film. It's not as bad or as terrible as it sounds, though a lot of it is. The acting was good, and I did believe the chemistry between Jamie Foxx and I don't even know her name, but Annie. That's I don't even know her name. And she was pretty good as well. She was a little too sweet. I do not like musicals that are really sweet and charming, so I'm not the best person to judge this movie. So far, the only musicals I've ever liked are either darker ones like Les Mis and Sweeney Todd, or ones that have to do with some kind of conspiracy for a famous story already, like Wicked. But for me, it's just there was just a little too much sweetness. Cameron Diaz was not a good role for Miss Hannigan. There were some modernizations that I did like with this, but unfortunately there was also some stupid decisions with filler. There was decisions on trying to make a joke out of it being a musical. Yeah, I can understand why people actually felt embarrassed going to this movie, because the whole thing about musicals, you have to stretch your imagination, you have to take a leap of faith, because normally people just do not just burst out into song. And that's what musicals do. And so in order to enjoy a musical, you have to just suspend your disbelief on that thing. And if you can just suspend your disbelief, then it becomes an okay movie. Unfortunately, there were so many moments where it joked about this, just suddenly breaking into song, which might be funny to some, honestly, but at the same time, it's making you think a more realistic tone, like this joking, like people don't honestly break out into song, and so that it's almost like people realistically what they would say, like someone starts ultimately just breaking out into song and they're like, really? You're singing right now? I mean, that sounds like a pretty realistic reaction. Unfortunately, you're trying to suspend your disbelief on this whole musical stuff, and so when there's jokes like this, it makes you feel embarrassed, and it makes you feel like they were embarrassed that it was a musical. And so I totally get why people are coming out of the theater either disappointed or very embarrassed about the movie. And even before we went into the theater, there were people coming out of Annie just as we were getting in, and this mother was with her daughter, and the daughter was just like the right age demographic for these kind of movies. She was a little kid, and the mother asks, "What'd you think about it?" And I knew it was Annie because they had just came out of Annie, and the girl looks up at her mother and says, "I didn't like it." When your own age, I know that's just one little girl's opinion, but when your own age demographic and gender demographic for this movie didn't even like the film, that's pretty crazy. Although I can understand why people liked it. I mean, hell, my sister and my dad loved it. I went to the movie with them. They loved it. I hated it. 25 is another movie I would give 1.5 stars to, because it's a movie that I was really hoping I would like. It has a great story, an important story, and a great historical legend. Unfortunately, it's just really boring. So 25 is Cesar Chavez, and I really was hoping I would like this movie because I like the actors in it, and most of the actors did a decent job of the film, and unfortunately it was just long and boring despite it being an important time in our history. The reason why I gave it 1.5 stars is it still had potential, and there was really great scenes in the movie. It's just unfortunately the rest of the movie was very slow paced, very boring, and I wish they would have done something a little bit more with the fasting, which there's this point where Cesar Chavez fasts for several days, but when you see him fast in the movie, he doesn't look any skinnier, which, I mean, granted, I don't want him to be unhealthy, and I don't want the role to be dangerous for the actor, but unfortunately he didn't look like he had been fasting for as long as Cesar Chavez fasted, and that took me out of the movie a little bit. But other than that, like I said, there's some great scenes in it. So unfortunately, the rest of it is boring. Okay, 24. Another movie I was really hoping would be good, mainly because it's a spin-off of a horror movie that I really loved. So Annabelle had some good things to it. It felt like there was something in it that I could enjoy. I know my sister enjoyed the hell out of it. Unfortunately, I think its problems for me was the two main characters were so bland and so perfect that it's hard to believe that they're real people. And in all honesty, the character I enjoyed the most is only in it for like the last third of the movie. It's there's this one black lady that they find and has this library or some kind of bookstore. If you've seen it, you know who I'm talking about. She was the most interesting character of the movie, and I was sad that she, well, I don't want to spoil the ending, but if you still feel like this could be a good movie. But she was the best part of the movie. Everyone else was pretty bland and just like, eh. And there are moments where, if done right, it could have been good. I mean, I'm not gonna blame any of the cinematography. It was really good. I mean, it's the same person that did the cinematography of The Conjuring and other movies that James Wan has directed. It looks good. I mean, visually it looks good, and there is this one great and honestly scary scene, this intense moment with the basement and the cradle and the stairway. That whole scene was good. Okay, I know this one is, it might be only my 23 for worst films of 2014, but I know this has to be a lot of people's number one, especially if they had not seen Left Behind. This is an epically long and way too complex movie, and it is unfortunately full of lots of stereotypes that don't feel like real people, plus lots of product advertisement placements and so yeah, 23 for me is Transformers Age of Extinction. And again, this is another movie I would give 1.5 stars, because if you like mindless action movies, you might actually have a good time. I know there were actual people that we had a whole theater full of people, and I know there were people at the end of this film that stood up and clapped for it. And I don't think they were being sarcastic. They were being truthful. They liked it. You could like it if you just look at it as a dumb action film. Unfortunately, if you don't think of it that way, then you're definitely not going to like it. And there are moments that are okay, and then there are just, unfortunately, way too many stupid stuff, like really stupid stuff, that make it a bad film. And that's the characters, like the boyfriend. Oh my god. Mark Wahlberg's daughter has a boyfriend in this movie, and he was annoying as hell. You know, there's just a lot of it's just like all the other Transformers movies. Unfortunately, the 2 out of the 4 Transformers movies, there are 2 of them I can enjoy, and that is the first one and the third one. Those ones I'm completely fine with. Now, am I saying they're amazing films? No, but they're films that I can enjoy. This is not as bad as Revenge of the Fallen. For me, Revenge of the Fallen is so bad. It's the only one of the Transformers I would give a 0.5 star to. Not 0, because there's still some enjoyment, but it is definitely the worst one. And Age of Extinction is not nearly as bad as that. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of stupid stuff that I really don't want to get into because it would take up this whole video. Alright, number 22 is a horror movie, serial killer movie, thriller that honestly has good acting in it. I have no problems with the acting. I do have problems, however, with the characters being stupid as hell. So yeah, No Good Deed. I saw this in theaters, and the only reason I was actually slightly entertained was because the people behind us that were just yelling out the things that our main characters should have done. There is a good twist in the movie. I have to give them credit for that. And the last act of the movie was entertaining because the main character was finally fighting back. Unfortunately, the whole middle of it was just full of stupidic moments to the point where it's just, you're screaming at the main characters like, don't do that or do this, and so it is unfortunately a stupid movie with good actors. Both of them, both the main girl and the which I know are mostly from Person of Interest, and the mom in Karate Kid, the remake. She was good in it. Idris Elba was good in it. He played the ultimate creeper. Unfortunately, their characters were so stupid that most people are probably going to blame them for acting bad, which, in all honesty, it was the characters, it wasn't them. I felt they actually did some really good acting. Okay, I'm going to end this video with one more show, and then I'll do the rest, and then I'll probably separate it into 2 more parts, each part with only with 10 of the movies. So this is my 21, and this is another movie I would give 1.5 stars to. And it's also Michael Bay related because he was the producer, though he might as well have been the director because it definitely felt like it. But yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm sure you knew this was coming. I grew up in the 90s. I grew up with the Ninja Turtles cartoons. I even like the current Ninja Turtle cartoons as well. When this movie had trailers out, and I'm looking at it, and I look at the turtles, and I'm like, no, those aren't even the turtles. They look like giant mutant Shreks. The design of the turtles and them being gigantic, it's kind of an oxymoron that turtles are ninjas in the first place, but being these big hulking giants makes it even more ridiculous that they're ninjas, and is even more hard to believe. Not that it's very believable in the first place, but Megan Fox was pretty damn bad at April O'Neil. God, what was his name to the... Oh, that's right, Will Arnett. Yeah, he was not funny at all in this movie, and it was so much awkward humor. Yeah, they didn't even need to have Will Arnett in this movie. His character was completely unnecessary. There was a lot of bad things about it. The first fight scene I felt was really bad too, except for the scene with Splinter and the Shredder fighting. That was okay. The fighting sequences progressively got better, and I actually did enjoy the fight scene at the end, even though the ending completely ripped off Amazing Spider-Man with the lizard's idea. Yeah, they ripped that off completely. And the avalanche scene that everyone totally enjoys, I absolutely hated. That was like one of the worst scenes in the movie for me. It was completely unbelievable, which I know it's a ridiculous action movie to begin with, but it just felt way too ridiculous for me. The one good thing about this movie that they absolutely nailed, which is why I have to give it 1.5 stars rather than possibly 1, is the turtles. Now, they do not look like the turtles. I completely hate the design for the turtles, but they totally got the right acting for the turtles, and they actually felt like they sounded like, and they acted like the Ninja Turtles, which could have gone horribly wrong, but I totally have to admit they got that right, which is good, which is pretty much one of the most important things of the movie. There are a few instances where Donatello got a little too annoying by spouting off so many statistics. It's like, okay, I get it. You're the smart one, which is what you're supposed to be. However, there's more to smartness than just yelling out statistics. And that got a little annoying because it got a little too much of that. And then while Angelo, I felt, was still funny and still that immature person that we come to know, there are a few jokes that I felt were a little too mature, a little too suggestive, and a little too just inappropriate that I didn't think that Angelo would say. And so there's a few of those that I'm like, that honestly sickened me more than made me laugh. But other than those things, I felt the Turtles were done right when it comes to their personalities. So I have to give them credit for that. Unfortunately, there was just so much things that I hated about the movie that ultimately I disliked the film, which I liked it more than I thought I would, but I still ultimately disliked the film. And so that is number 21 through 26 of my the worst 26 films I've seen in 2014. The next video will be number 11 through 20, and let's face it, this list can only get worse. If you're surprised that these big worst films only got 21 through 26, well, wait till you hear my next ones. This is Bruce Gifford again, and this is just my opinion.